Welcome to Issues That Matter. I'm Cynthia Pooler, and my guest today is Diane Sare. Diane Sare has been climbing this incredible, almost insurmountable mountain. She's running against Chuck Schumer in New York State for the United States Senate. So, Diane, I've got to ask you first and foremost, has it been daunting or has it been fun?
Yes, a definitive yes to both of those,
Okay.
daunting and fun. People say if it's not hard to do, it's probably not worth doing.
That's interesting. Yes. So New York State is pretty interesting for third party candidates because the number of signatures that a candidate had to get to qualify for the ballot was tripled from 15,000 to 45,000. And Diane, I gotta give you credit, boy, you did it, and that's amazing. You did more than 45. So as you walked from, from signature to signature, um, what were people telling you?
Well, we had to get them at a very fast pace, so we could not engage in intense political discussions, although people are so traumatized by the hyperinflation and war danger. Sometimes you're not sure if you're a political organizer or a therapist because people want to talk. Um, when they would say, "What do you stand for?" or they ask other people, "What does she stand for?" I would always say, "I'm against nuclear war. This isn't going to solve the problems. It's the number one issue." And many people agreed. You had some people who said, "Oh, well, I'm more concerned about," and they'd say some minor wedge issue.
Hmm.
Uh, but really, the whole campaign has been run as an anti-nuclear war campaign because that's the immediate danger facing us.
I totally agree. How many people who are who you think are going to go vote who are keenly aware of this issue?
I actually think most people are aware, but they try to bury it because you're not supposed to talk about it on television. You'll get labeled a Russian propagandist, as I have been, as you know, on this Ukrainian hit list, along with many other truthful individuals. So they don't talk about it unless you bring it up. But once you bring it up, people admit that they actually are very concerned about it. And the other thing I'll say, in the course of my campaigning, I discovered many people that surprised me that were very aware of the Nazi affiliated groups in Ukraine, like the Azov Battalion. I was speaking at a gym in the South Bronx of largely Puerto Rican clientele, and the young people there knew about the Azov Battalion.
Hmm.
So as much as the press thinks that they are controlling what people think, I have news for them. It's not working.
Mm. So, how have you been getting your message across?
Well, I've been doing as much as I can on social media.
Hmm.
I have been doing interviews, as you know, since you've interviewed me. I'm in the streets. I have people out in the street every day across the state, handing out literature, talking to people, hanging up things on doorknobs, putting up yard signs. You can imagine the petitioning. We had to speak with probably, I don't know, 100,000 people to collect the 66,000 signatures I got. And that's the irony that I think people should bear in mind. It's sort of like President Biden's sanctions on Russia. Well, the United States is being hurt by the sanctions far more than Russia is. So these silly people at the Board of Elections and Governor Cuomo and both major parties who decided they wanted to keep all of us off the ballot by making this crazy requirement of 45,000 signatures, they actually forced me to create a large grassroots organization. probably unlike what anyone else has in the state. So their action to suppress me caused us to have an incredible outreach.
And as far as getting your message out, um, have you gotten a lot of media interviews?
Well, in the last weeks, it is really exploding. And yeah, I'm getting my days mixed up. Yes, yesterday morning, no, what day was the debate they excluded me from? You see, I can't keep anything straight now.
Sunday.
Sunday, okay, Monday morning. I had an interview with Sputnik News.
Hmm.
And I wanted to hit on a few things. They were, of course, asking about Russia, Ukraine. They asked me about Saudi Arabia joining the BRICS. But I said, look, I want the whole world to know that democracy in the United States is a fraud. And I just went through the signature requirement, the debate, etc. And I have now seen 14 different articles all over the world based on that interview. Clearly people want to hear it. In Pakistan, in Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Brazil, Portugal, this has appeared. And, that's rightfully so, because we really have no right to run around bludgeoning other nations in the name of democracy
Mm.
when we're not practicing that here at home. But aside from that, I was on the Duran with Alex and Alexander. That was one of my favorite interviews. The things that you have done with myself and Scott Ritter
Thank you.
uh, um, have been important. I've been on radio. I was on an NPR radio affiliate out of Rochester, New York. I did a couple short segments on some Buffalo radio stations. And it's breaking some of the Bernie Sanders networks, former networks like Hard Lens Media. And I was on Garland Nixon's program last night. Uh, so it's moving along. It's really picked up quite a bit. And I tend to be doing now 3 or 4 or more interviews per day.
And out of those 3 or 4 interviews that you're doing, what percentage of New Yorkers are aware that you're doing them, would you think?
I have no idea. I have no way to measure it. You may have seen there's been a new poll done by somebody called Trafalgar. It's not considered a major poll. They tend to follow libertarian candidates. It's the
Mm-hmm.
first poll I'm aware of that's mentioned my name. They're claiming that I have 5.1% of the vote,
Mm-hmm.
which I find very interesting, because I would expect they'd want to at least claim that I'm below 2%. They don't want me getting any bright ideas about creating my own party line. Um, and all these things I think are kind of screwy. These pollsters, everything depends on the way in which they ask the questions. Um,
So there was a debate on Sunday, and you were excluded from it, even though you got enough signatures to qualify for the ballot. Tell everybody about the fact that Spectrum News worked against you.
Well, it really is quite outrageous, because they made the first crazy hurdle with this outrageous signature requirement using the argument, if you want to prove that you're a viable candidate with statewide support, then you have to get 45,000 signatures. I did that and more. Therefore, according to their own standards, I am a statewide, have demonstrated statewide support. I'm a viable candidate. Spectrum then went ahead and made up their own arbitrary criterion that you have to get 15% in various opinion polls in order to qualify for the debate. And I can tell you, someone on my campaign staff called the polling agencies, and one of them said, it was honest enough to say, I think 15% is ridiculous and arbitrary. We don't do these polls for the purpose of excluding. In other words, it's not the polling companies, although I think it's outrageous. The other aspect, which is I'm supposed to get 15% in an opinion poll, which poll does not allow people to choose Diane Sare as an option. And we knew that because two of my petitioners got called. And when they said, we're voting for Diane Sare, they were told, oh no, that's not a choice. It's Schumer or Pinion. So it reminds me very much of what happened in Alabama when Black voters or Black citizens would try to vote and they would be asked how many bubbles in a bar of soap.
Oh boy. Uh huh.
I mean, it's the exact same tactic.
So it was the it was Spectrum that excluded you.
Spectrum. And I want to add, because I sent them a letter personally saying, I believe you're in violation of the FEC regulations of providing equal time and giving equal opportunity to candidates to qualify,
Hmm.
since your polls don't allow people to select me. And they wrote back and claimed that I was included because people could choose other. Now, my name is not other.
Right.
That is not, I mean, that's so obviously discriminatory.
Hmm.
So it's really something. I can tell you the international press really ate this up. This is going out all over the world. It should be quite an embarrassment for Spectrum News.
So what was in it for Spectrum to exclude you? Why do you think they did that?
Well, they're not a small, I think they're the second largest cable provider in the country. And if you look at how our news media has been taken over by the intelligence agencies, like John Brennan, former head of the CIA, and now he's supposedly at MSNBC, and this other guy, I think his name is Josh or something Campbell, who used to work for James Comey, and he ends up at CNN. So the media have been playing a terrible role. We are really under wartime propaganda. They want to stampede people into hating Russia, hating China, creating an enemy image, and they can't afford anyone who would disrupt that narrative. And therefore, there was no way they could have me in the debate because I never would have gone along, even with the questions. The questions themselves were shaped to manipulate people. Like one of them was, uh, it's something like, it has been said that Putin may be considering or may be likely to use a nuclear bomb. Well,
Hmm.
Putin's not likely to use a nuclear bomb. The only country that ever did that was the United States.
Right.
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 So, I wouldn't have answered in that form. They can't have, or the thing about assault weapons and the Buffalo shooting, I already did a statement on that. If we're going to send $80 billion, including 15 or $16 billion of weapons to Nazi groups in Ukraine, don't be surprised when you have people in the US wearing, the Black Sun, wearing Nazi regalia and carrying out white supremacist shootings.
Hmm.
We have a violent government, and no amount of gun control or not gun control is going to change the culture. So, of course, they didn't want me saying that. So that's why they decided to exclude me from the debate.
Do you think Schumer had a hand in making sure you weren't in it?
Yes, I'm rather
Okay.
certain he did. Yes.
Wow. Incredible. So, you decided to run for Senate how long ago?
Really, I've been talking about this since about 2018.
Okay.
Um, but it really became clear in 2021 when you remember General Michael Flynn, who had Trump had brought in as national security advisor, and then he got
Hmm.
railroaded out of there. And he had been fired by Obama as Defense Intelligence Agency head, I think, because he was stationed in Syria or that region. And he spoke out against US policy. He said, I don't think it's really a good policy for us to provide weapons to Al Qaeda. Um, Sounds good, right to me. So he was fired. He had been calling for an actual audit of the intelligence agencies. And Trump, who, kept talking about the lies about Iraq's weapons of mass destruction,
Mm-hmm.
began echoing this. We need an audit of the intelligence agencies, which I think would be a great idea. They're not transparent in any way, and God knows who deploys them. So Schumer went on Rachel Maddow and said explicitly, that is stupid. They have 6 ways from Sunday to get back at you. And I thought, no one has really challenged Schumer in a serious way,
Mm-hmm.
probably because they don't want the FBI showing up in their shower at 6 o'clock in the morning with NBC cameramen behind them or whatever. And this is reprehensible. How can you say we don't tell the truth because someone may take action against you? Isn't that exactly the hallmark of a police state?
Mm-hmm.
So that was something that really kind of spurred me on, that I wanted to challenge Schumer on that, let alone his ties to Wall Street and his funding of all of these wars. But that was just such a corrupt public statement to be making in defense of a horrible process that our intelligence agencies have been involved in over decades.
I think the timing of what the Supreme Court did was kind of scary. The Supreme Court voted to overturn Roe v. Wade, right?
Mhm.
But at the same, and many women in this country were, are up in arms against, oh, we've got to make sure the Democrats keep control of the Senate and the House because of Roe v. Wade. But wait, what they don't comprehend, or maybe they don't want to comprehend, or they don't know, is the fact that there's many Democrats in Congress and the Senate who voted for continual funding for the war in Ukraine. That to me is pretty scary, wouldn't you say?
Yes, in fact, the Democrats have been voting unanimously I mean, not a one of them has objected. And I do think you're right. The timing of that is really, it's a hot button issue to get everybody emotional and divided and diverted when you have, and I'll tell you, my husband was out petitioning and he met a woman who said, well, where does she stand on Roe v. Wade? And Chris said, she's trying to stop a nuclear war. We're going to all be dead. And the woman said, well, I don't care about that. All I want to
What?
know, yeah, she said, I'm not worried about that. I just want to make sure my granddaughter can get an abortion when she needs one.
Oh my God.
It, and that's the degree of the brainwashing, the unbelievable brainwashing. So
How do
you're
you
you're really right.
how do you change that?
Well, I think we people are very afraid. They're afraid of their own security and their survival, but they also feel like they're too small and they can't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
So part of the change, I think, is what some of my younger associates have been doing at these town hall meetings, where they nailed AOC on voting for all these weapons for Ukraine and claiming to be a progressive peace activist. And
Mm-hmm.
they've hit a number of congressmen. Other people got Elizabeth Warren and Diana Presley up in Massachusetts. And then in Detroit 2 days ago, two younger people called out Barack Obama for financing the coup in Ukraine and the danger of nuclear war. And and these things then go totally viral on social media because, as I said, the mainstream press is trying to suppress the reality of the real danger we are facing, but everyone is concerned about it. And I think the way you see it is when someone stands up and tells the truth in a congressional town hall meeting and 25 million people circulate that, then this is what's on people's mind. And the fact that those 30 progressives just after that AOC intervention, did write a letter very mild letter saying, oh, President Biden, we love what you're doing and we love the weapons in Ukraine, but could you at least mix it with a little diplomacy? We're afraid that things are going to escalate and maybe we should try a negotiated solution. For such a mild letter, there was a huge backlash, and within hours, um, they what is her name, Pramila Jayapal from California, uh, wrote an explanation trying to sort of walk it back and say, look, we all agree Ukraine has to win, but we really want to express our hope that we don't escalate. And then a few hours later, they retracted the letter altogether, which indicates the pressure. Although I understand apparently Ro Khanna has said that he doesn't retract the letter, or
Mhm.
he still feels the same way. So I think that was a direct result of the fact that you have people um, challenging the Congress publicly. And I think this is very good. This is how our republic is supposed to work. The Congress should worry that they can be unseated in an election. It's a tough threat to deliver because the media is so controlled. I mean, I can see that by my exclusion from the debate, by the fact the New York Times called my office and did an interview after I got on the ballot and then wrote a lying article saying no one succeeded at crossing the threshold. Well, obviously, that's very damaging. You know, Schumer has the equivalent of millions of dollars worth of free press. Now they're promoting the Republican nominee, No Opinion, as I call him, because on all major issues, he's identical to Schumer. Um, and he's getting all this free press. Well, I'm sure if I were actually covered, probably I would win. I think most people don't want to freeze and starve to death and they don't want to die in a nuclear war.
Mhm.
And those are the burning issues. And if they disagree with my proposals for massive infrastructure building and water management, and all right, we can fight that out later, but let's at least be alive to
Mhm.
get to that point.
Do you think that the major issue people, what do you think is the major issue people are concerned about, given the fact that a lot of people form their opinions from the mainstream media?
Well, in spite of that, I think they're very concerned about the war. I think they're very concerned about safety and violence. We have so many shootings. We hear horrible stories of bullying in schools, aside from shootings in school. And then people are deeply stressed about whether they're going to be able to buy food or gas for their car. I mean,
Mhm.
during in the campaign, you talk to a lot of people. I met people who were working at minimum wage jobs, and most of the minimum wage jobs are hard jobs, home health aides or dealing with disabled people. I mean, caregivers get paid very little and they work very hard. And they were saying that to get to work, they're now going to have to take another job because they can't pay for the gasoline in their car. I mean, these are the things that people are telling me. So this causes an enormous amount of anxiety. And they may not think of the big picture, what we've been doing with all these bailouts, how the hyperinflation was generated, how it was caused, or the fact that we're really at the end of a rotten liberal financial system.
Mhm.
Um, that's the driving force of the crisis. But what's on people's minds right now is really barely beyond immediate survival and the well-being of their children. I think they're very, very worried about the safety of their children.
Now, what you're saying is different from what you hear on TV. They say, oh, the economy is booming, people are doing well. I just find it so incomprehensible that the people on TV command such big salaries for not telling the truth,
I think
right?
there's a lesson there. Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Why aren't you paid more? Don't you get paid a lot of money for doing these interviews?
No, I do it because I want to save humanity from a nuclear holocaust.
Of course. Well, that
Uh-huh.
doesn't pay very well, does it?
Hey, it's given me life. Every day I do this and maybe I make a little dent. maybe that's one day longer that we'll all live, right? You know,
Exactly.
I'm at that age where, okay, I've lived quite a number of years, but what about the young people? The young people that are burdened with student debt, who might not have a high-paying job to look forward to, who are postponing, raising a family and buying a house. Those are the people that I think I want to do something to make sure that they have a life, a good quality life, a number of years down the road. Would you agree?
Yes, I emphatically agree. Exactly.
So, in the final minutes that we have, Diane, give a little pitch for your campaign and the final days.
Okay. Well, first, people can find me at sareforsenate.com, and that's SARE, four letters, as it says under my name, sareforsenate.com. Sign up, volunteer. We have people all over the state who are armed with yard signs and leaflets and flyers and newspapers. We'd be glad to get you material. We'll be continuing to crisscross the state in the last days. And I will also say, for those of you who say, well, I don't know, there's only 3 days, please sign up with my campaign, because we are building a movement. And this, whatever happens Tuesday, as long as the threat of nuclear war exists, I will be using my voice as you are to stop it. And I do have to say that, unfortunately, there is no other such voice in the state of New York. I've seen these campaigns, I've seen these candidates. No one else, unbelievably, who is running for federal office is making this war danger a major issue, and it is existential for all of us.
So, we have just a few more days until Election Day. Diane, all the best in the world. Thank you. You've been listening to Diane Sare, who's running for United States Senate in the state of New York. I'm Cynthia Pooler. This is Issues That Matter, and if you like the show, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks, Diane, and thank you everybody for watching and listening.